Okay, hello and welcome to MS Dynamics World's Fall CRM Web Series. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and I am really happy to have you all here with us today for this event. Today we have Henry McCallum, a CRM veteran and a senior solution consultant at Cole Systems, who is with us to talk about the use of processes in Dynamics CRM 2011. We invite you to add your feedback and questions today throughout Henry's presentation, and there are a couple ways for you to do this. First, you can use the Q&A block as well as the chat block that you'll see to the right of the screen to ask your questions anytime, and Henry will probably be stopping to see what people think throughout the event. You can also use Twitter, where you're going to use the hashtag MSDWCRM to take questions. I'll post that in the chat as well. But without further delay, I would now like to welcome Henry McCallum.
Good morning, everyone. My name is, as was mentioned, my name is Henry McCallum. I am a senior consultant with Cole Systems. Cole Systems is a boutique Dynamics partner, gold partner in both AX Dynamics CRM as well as GP, based out of New York City. A little bit about ourselves real quick is that we were founded in 1987 by Ivan Cole, who is one of the premier Microsoft influencers in the area of Exapta, as well as some other products. We're, as I said, 50-person IT consulting and business solution consulting firm focused on business applications, the Dynamics stack, basically. We do infrastructure work as custom development, as well as custom development. We are based in Tribeca, New York, in the lovely building you see there. Kind of looks like the First Wives Club. We actually own the whole building. We are a wholly owned.
I think your slides are not showing right now, so I think you need to reshare your desktop.
Oh, okay. My apologies for that. There we go. My apologies. Are we seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I apologize for that. So as I mentioned, we are based in New York City. We also have an office in Chicago, as well as the Bay Area of California. We have well over 100 customers. Many of those have been with us for 20 or so years. Numerous Microsoft and other technology awards. We are a member of the Microsoft Retail and Distribution Center, in fact, founding members of those groups. Those are areas of our focus. A little bit else about Cole. Again, we are a boutique practice. We do not take on every client or every relationship with a partner. We actually look for more complex business-related or business process-related projects. We are a partner-friendly organization. We work with many other Dynamics partners, especially in our areas of expertise, which are retail, manufacturing. Those relationships are reciprocal in the sense that we not only assist them with augmenting their skill sets as well as resourcing and our experiences, but we also expect that of our partners. And we are a pure Microsoft shop, all the way down to the infrastructure being purely Microsoft. A bit about me. I have been involved in the CRM space since the days of DOS and the early contact managers. I've been through the migration from CM to SFA, Salesforce Automation, all the way up to now the XRM area. My experience and background is pretty wide-ranging. I've done ERP solutions, EDI, the whole 9 yards, and have done work for mom-and-pop shops all the way up to actually Fortune 5 companies. That's basically a little bit about us. What I'd like to do is just get started. I wanted to just share one other piece of information with you, and that is some of the functionality that we'll be showing today requires some manual entry in the workflow area, but there is actually a great resource out on the web called CodePlex. I'm not sure if many are aware of, but it's actually hosted by Microsoft, and it's actually an open source area for organizations and people to post work that they've done that they want to share with the community. And there's a great product out there which is called the Workflow Manipulation Library, which was written by a partner called Engage. Actually, Carlton Coulter wrote it. This library actually gives us some additional functionality, and I'll mention a few of them throughout the session, such as the ability to take a date field and actually pull out using workflow the month date, which makes it very easy for doing some of the things we'll be doing when we go through and send out automated notifications. So I would suggest if you're interested in building out some of the functionality that we're discussing today, that you would take a peek at this CodePlex site. And again, it's called the Manipulation Library at manipulationlibrary.codeplex.com. At the end of the presentation, they'll be sending out some information on an actual package that will be sending out a managed solution that includes some of the work that we've done and shown today so that people can play with it and get a little more familiarity. That functionality can be enhanced significantly by utilizing this tool here. That being said, we are going to jump right into CRM. So basically the goal of today's session is going to show us a couple examples and ways that we can use automation to reinforce our contact with our customers, our prospects, our agents, whomever that we do business with, and make it such a way that we don't have to manually go in and do things and reach out to them, but set up almost like a ticker or trickle effect of communications. The first area that we're going to talk about is how we can assist our sales area or our accounts area by setting up some notifications. So I'm going to go into our account area. And what we've done here is if we look at our account screen, and you're all probably familiar with this view, we have a bunch of different relationships here for different accounts and contacts, or for accounts. So what we want to do here is we want to make sure that we stay on top of our customer base and thank them for the business they're doing with us. So what we're going to do is first we're going to take and create a anniversary email that basically thanks our customers for their business each year. So in order to do that, we're going to take advantage of one of Microsoft's functions that have been around since the early days of the product back in 1.2, formerly known as workflows. They've rebranded that functionality because Microsoft has now added some additional functionality onto that, which is the dialogues, which allows us to create structured call scripts and question prompts and answer scenarios for data entry. For today's, the purpose of today, we're going to focus on what was called workflow, but now are called processes. So the first area we're going to go into is we're going to create that email for our customer base. In order to do that, we go into an area of CRM called settings. There's an area called processes, and we're going to create a new process. Now, you're going to be presented with the web dialog. It's going to ask you some questions. Now, first thing it asks, of course, is what's the process name we want to give this. Now, it's very important that the process name be something that will stand out and be familiar to you. The reason being is we can use processes automatically as well as on demand, and I'll explain the difference between those in a few moments. But for right now, we are going to create a customer appreciation email. Okay. Now, when you're creating a work process flow, it starts you off generically. It does not actually start you from within the entity you're looking for. So we're going to go into the entity option. We're going to pick account. And then from here is where we determine whether it's going to be, what type of process this is going to be. Is it going to be a dialogue or a workflow? This is going to be a workflow. Now, within workflows, you can also create templates, thereby allowing you to reuse parts of your work in future workflows. So right here, we're going to create a new blank process. We say OK, and we're going to be presented with another dialog. Now notice the process name copies over. It's going to be activated as a process. It tells us the account. It also mentions that it's the workflow. The following areas below that are actually very important because it's how and what we select in these areas that determines the access to the workflow as well as how it's run. So we're going to select the available to run. We're going to select on demand. Now what on demand does, it actually allows us to run this on a select or selected records. So not only can this run it automatically in the background, but we can on demand select a number of records and say, let's run this process on them. Most of the time I always select on demand. It just gives me more flexibility as I can reuse things in the future. Another option that we're not going to use at this point today is to create as a child process. And what happens when you create as a child process is that a single workflow or dialog can then call this process as a child to itself. So if conditions are met and we run this first process, an example I'll give here for what we're going to create here is this customer appreciation email, is we may want to do something that is an email maybe 3 months prior to that saying, we know your anniversary is coming up. Would you, we're offering you a special discount or something like that in honor of, your business, doing business with us for so long. Different things like that. To the right of that, we have the options for the automatic process. Now, the scope is very important. Based on scope, this defines who has access to this or who can run this. Now, if we were to choose user, it would be available to my user. If we chose business unit, it would be available to anyone in the structured role, business unit structure of CRM that's in my business unit. Parent-child would be my business unit and others in the child business units of that unit. For this option, we're going to select organization because by default, we're going to want to send this notification out to any account record that meets this criteria. The start when is a very important area. Start when tells me how is this process going to kick off, what's going to cause it to occur. We can do a couple of different things. If we were to determine that it is record created, any record added to the system will automatically launch this workflow. Now, that is something that should be used with a bit of caution. If it does not need to be active on every record, I would select one of the other options. The reason being is that you don't want to have every single record that you add in the system have a workflow running in the background. It's a resource process that doesn't need to occur. For this record, what we're actually going to do is we're going to say that when the record is changed, other record statuses, whether it's active or inactive, if the record is assigned, what that basically means if the ownership of the record is changed from user X to Y, it will automatically kick off. There's also a process that you can run when a record is deleted. And let's see. Okay. Now, once we save that, if we go in, we're going to actually create some conditions for this workflow. Now, here's where the process of the workflow gets really intense. What we're allowed to do here is we can create a hierarchy of processes by using stages. We can also create conditions, whether it's a check condition, and the check condition basically says, if this, do that. Or we can create wait conditions. Wait conditions are a matter of time waits, durations, and or other values. For this situation, we're actually going to do a check condition. Okay. Some of the other areas, by the way, the top section is basically our validation, what we're waiting for. The second section is the actual actions that are going to create a record, update a record, so on and so forth. The lower area, you may notice if you've looked at CRM that you don't have these. State utilities, regex, string, web, calculation, and string utilities. Those are functions that come from that enhancement I was mentioning earlier. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and we're going to add a step. And what the step is going to be is a wait condition. And what we're going to do is wait and what I've done prior to this is I've added a few fields to the account. One of those being the anniversary month. Now, one of the things that CRM is not so good at doing outside of the report functionality is to do things such as just extract the month of our date. So we may have an anniversary date or a customer acceptance date that is in the month of September, but from 10 years ago. As you may know from using advanced finance, so it's very difficult to show me all records where they've joined our organization in the month of September. I can say, show me all records that have joined our organization in the month of September for the year 1999 on a specific date and or a date greater than or less than. So in order to actually get this functionality to work, it's very key to you have to have almost like those flag fields. Drawing back to my statement earlier of the third-party application that we mentioned, that application will allow you to take a date field, chop it up, and actually fill this field with the month based on the value in, say, in this case, we're basing all of this off of the acceptance date, account acceptance date. All right, so now account acceptance date, what we want to just do is make sure there's a value in there. So we're going to say contains data. All right. Quick explanation of these qualifiers. Equals is basically a true statement of value. In other words, if I say equals apple, the field must equal the word apple. If I say does not equal apple, what ends up coming up is anything else, oranges, so on and so forth. You can also use for things such as dates and numeric values, is greater than or equal to, is less than or equal to. Additionally, for the dates, you can use the on, not on or before, on or after. Again, that's what I was mentioning earlier, that you can actually subset the data based on those dates. Or you can simply say does not contain data. Here we're going to say that we want the field to contain data because we want to make sure that they have an acceptance date. Otherwise, our criteria that we're going to use later will not work. So that's our first criteria. We're going to add our second criteria. And again, we pick from our primary entity. Within the workflows, I could also pick from any related entity. So I could do something, say, go out and find out if they have any open opportunities. I could find out if they are in a certain territory, different options such as that. So here we're going to say that we want to go to our anniversary month, and we want it to equal, and this month we're in 09. Okay. So basically it's going to go out and find anyone is a customer, has an acceptance date, and is in 09. Very, very rudimentary. Now, one thing to be clear about is that unlike the advanced find, which you'll find this is very familiar to, I cannot nest these expressions and create and/ors. The tests and workflows are always and. So I need to make sure that the account has an acceptance date and that the anniversary month equals 09. Okay, so now I've got my criteria. Now I'm going to actually add another state. So I click on the level, select this row for date. Now it's very good to give descriptions here, by the way. Because as these get larger and larger, you can actually select the carrots, the arrow button, and shrink those. As well as in other areas, you can use this reference here to make it easier for you to understand the workflows. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to give you a little statement of fact about workflows. Workflows are a little bit unforgiving as are dialogues in the sense that as you build a structure and you're building down in the process flow, It is not easy, and more often than not possible to reorder those process steps. Many, many times you have to recreate them. That is a real reason why sometimes you should consider using child processes, so you can create your chunks of process and then put them together in the order that you need using the child process. So we're going to select our next row. And what we're going to do here is, for this process, we're going to send an email. Okay? And we're going to use a template. Now, what I've done prior to this session is I've actually gone out and created a new email. Okay. Okay. We're going to select from who it's from, and we can use either myself or we can pick a user. Now, within the workflow processes, we can set different values. So if I go here and I click in this field, I'm going to say that it comes from the account manager. Or I could say by the owner. But for this, we're going to use the account manager because it's important that we do that. We click Add, and we say OK. Now, just in case we don't have an account manager listed, we're also going to go and select another user. All right, so now if I say OK, what will happen is it'll give us both those names in here. Anything you see in yellow is actually sort of like a Word template. The system will pre-fill this data. The two, we're going to select another variable because it's a workflow, so we have to actually use variables for all of these items. We cannot simply say their name. If I were to type in Henry McCallum here, that'll work. I'm getting a red flag because it's not a user system, but it will still let it work. The issue would be that every email that went out to one of our customers on their anniversary would go to my email. It would not go to them. So we want to make sure that we actually put the value in there that we need. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to the account, and we are going to look up account manager, and we're going to add that as well. Excuse me, my mistake. I apologize for that. We're not going to use the account manager. We are going to use the account recipient. Okay. All right, there's the template we wanted to use, and then we can put a regarding in. Now, we can select from our accounts to look for a regarding, or we can simply not have a reference. This will allow us to reference this to a third relationship. That's not necessary in this point. We're going to save and close. Now, notice the red buttons, the red X's went away. Basically, that means that it found the things we're looking for here. Now, what I simply want to do now is I'm going to save this. Okay. Now, in order to get a workflow to run, it needs to be activated. So I'm going to actually select now the Activate button. The great thing about the ability to activate and deactivate records or workflows, if we made a mistake here, we can go back and fix them. Now, one of the things I'm not sure if anyone noticed is that there is a mistake on this workflow, and that is that I had originally stated that it was going to be created as a start on the change of a field. I actually changed that to a record is created. I can deactivate this and make the correction. So I've selected deactivate, and I'm going to change to change, or I can leave it at both. In this case, I'm going to leave it at both because we're using a sample database, and some of the information in the database is not updated because, again, it's not live data. It's a point in time from Microsoft. Save and close. I guess at this point in time, I can ask if there's any questions on that.
And if you're not seeing the Q&A tab, you can probably pull it down from the top of your screen.
It's in the chat area.
Either the Q&A or the chat area will work, really.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing any questions.
So, Henry, are you seeing the question that just came in? I can read it out if you'd like.
If you could.
Now on mute.
Thank you.
Sure. So the question that came in, when the wait is over, does the workflow engine take the latest value from fields or the values that were there in the beginning?
When the wait is over,
does the workflow engine take the latest value from fields or the values that were there in the beginning?
it takes the current value. So it's basically the wait occurs, so we're waiting for a duration, so we wait till a certain time or date. It's whatever the values are at the moment. Well, actually, let's rephrase that. It's the point of the process. So in this case, where we're sending this email, when the wait state is over, it's going to use the current values. If I'd add an additional step in there to update some other information, such as maybe we want to change their anniversary month at this point in time, or another value. They've been with us for 10 years, so we want to make them a preferred customer now. We can add that step into the nest, and then it would actually use that value. I would hope that answers the question.
Another question that came in, you mentioned that you selected the month 09, and how would you manage that so it changes monthly, changes dynamically?
Well, in other words, for the actual workflow, so I've got a situation where I've created fields in the system whereby I take the month. In this case, the anniversary month. When we get to the contacts, it'll be the birthday month, and it's basically 09 for the month of September. CRM does not, within the product, allow me to take a date and actually set that variable. In other words, I can't say only show me the month of a field. I can do that in reports. I can't really do that in the advanced find. That's a function that can be handled by using that extension that I mentioned earlier, and that'll be done in two ways. So basically, the workflow, and I'm going to actually share my screen real quick and show this. So if I went back into the process we just created, what I can do is I'm going to deactivate this.
Henry, I think we may have lost your screen sharing. I still see a window, but I'm not seeing any movement.
Are we seeing it now?
Yeah, now I'm seeing it.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a slow delay. So basically what I've done is I reopened up the workflow. What can be done is in that actual workflow, there are functions that we can add that'll allow us to do that. Because honestly, that's what you'd want to do. I can get this automation to a point, but that's going to mean that every time I enter a account acceptance date. So in other words, I have a new customer that became a customer today. I want it to automatically say it's September, and I need that month value updated. Or I need another way of determining the month. Those are extended processes that can be put into a workflow using that enhancement. CRM has not, Microsoft has not put some of that functionality in it. I can't speak for them. I'm sure that they're looking at what people have done on the outside and put on CodePlex for ideas of what to put in the future. But the case we would have there is twofold. We would want to wait to make sure that the account acceptance date has time date in it, and that the month equals. The value we would change would be this here. We would not want the month equals here. We would want actually a value that would come from the third-party enhancement, from the extender or the extension. So that this would basically be a variable that says current month, or whatever we call that variable when we extrapolated that data. And then this would sit in the background running forever and ever until we stopped it on a record. And as each month changed, it would go out and find all of the accounts in that month, and it would send out this document.
All right. Another question that came in here, when you selected the from field, you selected both the account manager and a specific user. Will that then send to both parties?
It will come from both parties.
It will come from both parties, okay.
Correct. And you can put as many into that. Again, this is like all of the multi-selects in CRM, the lookups. You can put as many names in there. I typed my own name in the one field and it was incorrect. I could then validate that against the current record in the system or add it and put that in. Word of caution is don't put too many names in there, because sometimes that kicks in spam filters. You know, an example of why it would come from two different people. As an example, you may want it to come from the president of the company as well as the account manager. It can be basically the same email, but maybe a different template, or the same workflow. We could add another template saying, from this person we send template A, from that person we send template B. And then they'd receive two emails, of course, and it may not be the best business practice, but for like a premier customer or a preferred customer, you know, it's important that maybe the president sends the email out as well.
Another question, I don't know, Henry, are you seeing the Q&A list here? I maybe could let you pick out somewhere. I could read off another one for you here.
I am not seeing the QA list, unfortunately.
Okay. One other that came in here, any idea why Microsoft allows you to trigger a workflow in a field that changes value, but not when a field contains a specific value?
Why, when it contains a specific value? You can trigger a workflow that will occur when a specific value occurs, or is in that. But basically, that's a wait state. You just kind of wait for that field the whole time. That's a really problematic type of workflow. So I could create a workflow that would say, you know, just sit out there and wait, and then have the dialogue in the workflow, and wait until field X equals preferred customer, and then trigger this. The problem is that workflow is going to sit out there for every single record all the time, just waiting and waiting and waiting. That's just really not, it's not a very system-friendly way of going about it.
All right. Those are all the questions for now. There's some others maybe we'll leave for later. So
I'm not seeing the QA. It just popped up. So let me see if we have any. All right, I'm just looking through. I now see the QA, so I'm going to real quick just scan through it and see if there's any idea what.
Well, Henry's
Okay,
reading. I'll just note.
Yep.
I'll just note we are recording the session today, so if you miss any part of it, you'll get an update when it's available on demand. Go ahead, Henry.
Okay. So there's also a question, how is this an effective tool in business? Well, the effectiveness of this is basically by setting up these automations in advance, and we're really doing some you know, rudimentary, you know, touch base type email things. Is once this is set up, it becomes second nature, or it becomes inherent to the system and sits running in the background. We're going to take this current workflow a step further, though, and I think this may answer that question, is where it becomes effective. One of the issues with automation is that it can become very cold. So a situation comes up that we have right now, this workflow in place, it's going to reach out to our customers. The problem that we have here is that that's not going to be enough. And the situation comes up that we have maybe preferred customers or something more more valuable, where we need a personal touch as well. So what I want to do is I want the system to automatically not only send an email thanking this person, this organization for their business, but I want to make sure that the account manager has a call to thank them as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new workflow, or we can go create off that same one. And this workflow is actually going to go out, and it is going to see all of our customers that are either a preferred customer or have done business with us for 20 years. So I'm going to create a new one. We're going to call it Preferred Customer. Contact. And the reason we're calling it contact is this is just not going to be an email. And what it counts is going to be a workflow, and it's going to be a new process. Okay. We're going to schedule this, also put this as an on-demand. We may have an account that we're reviewing that suddenly we realize that we forgot to have this included for some reason. The date was wrong, and we want to make sure this triggers automatically. Having it on-demand will allow it to occur, and we'll show this actually in action. The scope of this is going to be organizational. And what's going to happen here is we're going to start this at a little bit different time. We're going to start this when the relationship type or called, and most people's systems called category. When the relationship type changes. Okay? So right now you have accounts in your system that are listed in relationship type of prospect, partner, so on and so forth. We're going to get specific, though. We're going to filter that down a little more, and this may answer the one question that came up earlier as well. So first thing we want to do is we're going to perform a check condition. All right. Okay. So what we're going to want to do is we want to first see if they're a preferred customer. So we're going to wait until that field changes, but now we need to take it a step further because that field has a potential of 15 different values, 10 different values. We only want it to occur on a certain value. So we're going to say accounts, relationship, equals, and then this is going to pick from that list. So we see there's numerous values here. So we're going to say preferred customer, and we're going to say OK. So now if that value changes to preferred customer, we are going to want to ensure that an account manager is assigned. And the reason we're going to want to make sure, account manager. That was an example of the relationship. The reason we want to make sure an account manager is assigned because this record is actually going to do one of two things. It's going to create an email, but it's also going to assign a phone call. Contains data, so we want it to have a value. I don't know who it is. I don't care. This is that variable, almost like that date. We want to make sure it occurs. So if the relationship type is preferred customer and they have an account manager, and now you should also put some headers in here, such as make sure they're an active customer. Okay. What we're going to do here is we're going to go and add a step. And this step is going to be his classic email. Now, create new would let me create an on-the-fly email. We're actually going to use a template, as we did before. And we're going to select two. And here we're going to do something a little bit different because we want this to go to a specific person. So at the account, we're going to look for the preferred contact. So in here, we're going to select the values, and we're going to look for the related entity of contact, preferred contact. Primary contact, my apologies. We're going to add that. It's going to come from, and again, we select from the operators to the right. We're going to select from the account manager. My mistake here. I'm sorry. I apologize. I clicked one too quick here. From the account manager. Okay. We'll pick our template. We can again select a regarding if we need to. Save and close. So this will do the same process as last time, but we're going to take this a step further now. What we're going to do is we're also going to add an additional step. And what this additional step is, it's going to, this is going to schedule call. All right. So what this is going to do is it's going to schedule a call. Excuse me. So what we need to do now is set the properties on that phone call. Sender is going to be who created it, and that's basically going to be the accounts. And it'll be the owner. And we add that value. Okay. Phone number, we want to get the correct phone number. So when we schedule this call, we're going to go into our account, and we want to look up our related records. So we're going to go to the primary contact. And from the primary contact, we want to get their phone 1. So this is automatically going to fill in phone number 1 for the primary contact. Now, for those of you using CRM, you'll notice there are lots and lots of phone number fields. I don't want to use the address phone number that we see at the very top, because that's not the phone number that shows on generically on the form. We want to go and pick their actual phone number. Business phone, we add that. Recipient, again, should be the actual primary contact, so we add that. It'll be an outbound phone call, and then we can put some descriptive in here. Call to thank them for their continued business. And we're going to select the owner here. And we can assign this to a team, or we can do anything else like that. We're going to actually assign it to the account manager. So basically, the account manager is going to have all the responsibility for this. The issue with setting it up by using the account manager, there may be an issue, is that basically they own the record. So unless you do an all-record view of the phone activities, you won't see that. So I'm actually going to make a change to my decision here. I'm actually going to assign this to me. And for today, my name is Adam Barr. So basically, Adam, who may be the manager or something like that, is going to oversee all of these. The date, we're going to say that we want to set this for the phone call. We sent them an email today. We're going to set this phone call for tomorrow. So we're going to increase today's date by one day. And it's going to be one day after. And it's going to be the process date, which is the execution time of this workflow. So that's an interesting function here. So basically, it tracks the time that this thing is executed, this workflow. So when that first primary field changes, we now become a customer, preferred customer, excuse me. It tracks the execution time as today, 12:47 in the afternoon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to schedule this process to occur exactly one day after this. So this phone call will show up and be due one day after. Okay? We can categorize it if we need. We don't really need to. We're going to save and close. Okay? And when we're saved and closed, we can go on and add other processes to this as well. One thing that I'm going to do here, though, is when you create workflows, you need to consider, especially if they're doing a wait or on a change, as to whether you need to actually stop the workflow. For this workflow, we don't want to stop it. We want to actually have this run. Each year, we want to have this notified to give them a call and stuff like that. And we're going to save it. And we're going to activate it. So, any questions on that so far? So now this is actually going to do two processes. It's going to send an email. It's going to also send a notice to a user to actually make that phone call. No questions? All right, very good. All right. So now we want to see this in action. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our account space, and we're actually going to make an automatic process. So I'm going to go and I'm going to select, and just for the sake of doing it, I'm going to select this entire page of records. I'm going to go in and perform an edit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the relationship type to preferred customer. I'm going to make sure that some values are in place just so we know. Anniversary month now, 9 now. Again, using that other process, a workflow would sit here waiting. We're using that third-party enhancement. When I typed in 09-25-12, the anniversary month would automatically update that. It would be a separate workflow that sits out there having this occur. Let's actually open up the records, make sure confirm our data is correct. Now, from within a record, we can take a peek at what workflows are running. So, interestingly enough, we are not seeing a workflow. And the reason we're not seeing a workflow is there is something that we forgot to make sure was occurring here, and this would be a great place for a dialogue, by the way. I would guarantee that these records do not have an account manager, and that was one of our criteria. So we're going to assign the account manager here, and we're going to assign it to me. And as we see, as it chugs along, it updates it. Now the workflow, if it's still sitting out there, should begin the process as well. And we're going to take a peek and see if we've got that workflow. All right, so we're done. Give it a couple seconds. Now, workflows are not immediate. It works through the record list. And let's see if we got one more in here. We actually have the workflow proceeding. Proceeded, we'll take a status of it. So from within the account, we take a peek at the workflow. And we can drill down. And the great thing CRM does that a lot of other systems do not do, if they have an automated process like this within them, they do not give us the details like this. I can look right now and I can see that the email was successfully sent. There's the actual CRM tracking token. So guess what? If I click on that, again, CRM and its hyperlinks, I will now open up the email. I'm not guaranteeing this email is going to be pretty, by the way. Probably not the best email template to use, but again, as we said at the beginning, we weren't going to get into the creation of emails. So it went out to Darius. Here was the actual body of the email. So we know it's been submitted. So that's gone out. Now let's take a peek at something better, and that is the call. Select on the call link, and I see that there is a call scheduled for Jill to make a phone call to Darius, and it is scheduled for 1 day from then. So basically this now sits out there in her call log or in her activities waiting for her to actually make the phone call. We're going to go to the workplace for a person that had this activity running. We would see activities such as, and again, because the email template that I used was incorrect, this is my actual CRM administrator. For some records, I was the account manager. This is the actual calls that were created. Actually, excuse me, the emails that were created based on that. And we'll say, let's do tomorrow. And there you go. Call to thank them for their continued business. Now, one of the cool things you can do with CRM as well is, as you know, within the email templates, we could have done things such as calculated the number of years that they were a customer. And I won't use that example with birthdays because you probably don't want to send people out birthday emails or cards or whatever saying, happy birthday, congratulations for being 65 years old. Guys may not have much of an issue with that, but it's just wrong to ask or mention a lady's age. So we would not suggest doing that. Are there any questions on how we got to this point so far? No questions? Great. So, one last area that I wanted to mention and talk about the workflows is there's numerous ways that you can utilize this. This is a great way for doing things such as if your organization has, regular product updates, price list changes and stuff like that. Instead of using campaigns, if you assign a price list to an account or you assign a relationship of some sort to a contact, to have these workflows already set up with an email and automatically have them go out. Don't just think or wrap your heads around things such as, thank you for being a customer email. There's a functionality where you may want, if you've not heard from a customer or they've not returned or answered phone calls in a few months, that you want to notify them. Another one that people tend to use are dunning notices, though most of our ERP solutions do that as well. Sometimes a friendly reminder for the salesperson, not just the accounting person, saying that, hey, our account's getting a little questionable. What can we do to resolve it? I'll give you a call on, and the on is an X because we haven't put that in there yet. We can use the workflow, much like we just did, to say, send them the email, schedule a phone call for that variable date, execution of the workflow, plus 3 days. But also in the email template, we can say, use that same value, execution of the workflow, the date that we're going to call them, we take that from the call record, put that in email so that they know that in 3 days they're going to get a phone call. These are the automated processes that can be created, and there are a lot more. There's tons of them out on the internet. Many times you can look at your current notification process, anything you do to automatically notify people. We have a very sizable client that is going to be utilizing this sort of process to remind people that they have not attended a session that they may have paid for, just so that they're not coming back and saying 2 months later, well, I paid for 10 sessions and I only used 8. Well, we reminded you to come to your sessions and you haven't. It's a little bit of protection. That being said, we have about 3 minutes left here, so I'm going to, again, open the floor up for questions. Again, this is a very rudimentary show and tell. We will be providing, and we didn't really get into it, the actual workflow and process for you to send out a birthday notification, and that will include the process of 2 different workflow processes. The first being a happy birthday email, the second being a happy birthday email with a call from the account manager. And all right, we'll get any new questions.
Here's one that came in, Henry. Can I run this connected to my SQL, to my SQL 2008 R2 database?
So by connected to your SQL 2008 R2 database, well, CRM runs on SQL. The data stored within CRM, of course, is stored in SQL. If you're talking about attaching to a third-party database and using the workflow in that sense, right now, as the system exists, you could not use data in a third-party database to trigger a workflow in CRM. But CRM's workflows are based on the Windows Workflow Foundation, which is part of their common stack. There are utilities such as BizTalk, as well as third-party products such as Scribe, that would let you tie those external databases together and then use a trigger. An example would be if we have an external, say, database that tracks our inventory system, or, okay, an example is our fleet for vehicles. And we want to send a notification to our current customer base that a certain vehicle that they were requesting is now available. We don't want to store that information in the CRM, though we could. Changing the flag on that other vehicle using one of those third-party products or your own very simple development could update a flag in CRM saying that that vehicle type is now available. The workflow waits for that status flag to change of, vehicle X, and automatically sends a notification to everyone who is interested in that vehicle that that vehicle is now available. Your account manager is Henry McCallum. Your accounting agent is Cole Systems. Account agent is Cole Systems. Feel free to give us a call. Stuff like that. So, I'm not sure if that's the answer, but if it's not, I've kind of given you a whole new scenario to think about. And I guess that was Kat, correct?
make an assertion of that you did answer that question. There's another one here. If I have a workflow that is waiting on a date triggered by creation, not on the actual update of the date field, does that mean that as soon as the date field is updated, the wait will be recalculated in the workflow engine?
Yes, that's a very, very good and tricky question. It poses the thought of the possible loop. So I have a field that's saying wait for the date, and I add a value to the date. That workflow, if you leave that workflow in a state that is constantly running, it will update constantly. What I mean there is that workflow will never stop it. Whatever action has occurred, so we say send an email when the due date exists. So wait condition is wait for due date. Due date's empty, due date's empty, due date's empty. We suddenly add a due date. That workflow runs because the due date value was changed. That workflow, though it may not have any following actions, in other words, it won't send another email out or something, will continue to stay in action for that entire time, but if you change the date, it will not trigger another action. What will trigger another action in that case is that you actually have set that workflow to work on the change as well. So you do the wait state for the first time, and it's a great example of when you first create a lot of workflows. If you already have data in your system, then the wait for a change to occur is great. If you have your new system, sometimes you want to put that wait state out because you want two conditions. You want to make sure it waits until that value occurs, and or if it changes. Our due date now changes to another date. We want to make sure we trigger that, whatever that piece of notification or that action was. We change the due date, we want someone to call them and say, hey, we changed your due date. Thanks for being a customer. All right, so in that case, when you want to do here, when you want to wait, again, you would set that up for two different action types when we create the process. We would want it on the wait state as well as on the change of that same field. Because the value can change, the wait state's just going to sit there and wait until something equals something. And with a date, you can't say date equals whatever. That makes sense? So the date could be today, but, well, if it's tomorrow now, it's not going to help. Yes, that was my answer. Great.
We are at the top of the hour here. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time, Henry. So maybe this is a good time to wrap up, to thank the audience. Thank you, Henry, for your time today.
Thanks again, everyone. Again, there's lots of, by the way, there's lots of information out on workflows and stuff like that on Channel 9, which is something else that Microsoft provides, as well as MS Dynamics World has their site with some information on it. So there's lots of information out. This is one of the most powerful pieces of CRM. It is also one of the most underutilized pieces of CRM. You know, people go out and the sales hats on, we say that CRM can do anything, that the XRM platform can do anything you need. And a big piece of why it can do anything you need, besides the inherent building blocks of structures and security, is this workflow process. And it's going to get even better as Microsoft brings more and more of their products together. This workflow foundation stack is going to become more and more universal. At that point in time, we'll be able to do things, and the future is maybe able to see things in Word, Office 2013, where you may be able to actually launch things in CRM. Who knows? That's for the people in Redmond to decide. But anyway, I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much, and have yourselves a great day.